Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is Tuesday, December 9th. Welcome to the program, News and Opinion Live every day right here on the Shannon Joy Show. Not left, not right, just the truth, straight up, no chaser. Because there is so much propaganda out there, so many lies, so much manipulation from right-wing news media and left-wing news media. We try to filter through all of it and bring you the stories that matter to you. It is great to be with all of you today. We're so thankful for Inez Annie Cyrus, who is producing the Shannon Joy Show today. And yes, we got started just a little bit late. Buskman, I see you on the live chat. Shannon, just put on your Faraday beanie from the satellite phone store. Plug, plug, plug. No, the hair was okay today. You guys know when I'm having a bad hair day, I have been known to put on the beanie. And yes, I love the Faraday collection from the satellite phone store. Amazing sponsors of the Shannon Joy Show. Sat123.com is the website. That's sat123.com/joy. You always get 10% off with the JOY promo code. We have a lot to get to today. And I can't wait to tell you, actually, that's actually a phenomenal segue, Buskman, because this Friday, we are welcoming our guest, Brett Miller, once again into the Joy Virtual Studio. I am going to self-produce the show, and we're going to go behind the Rumble Premium paywall on Friday, and we are going to give away so much satellite phone store gear. So Faraday bags, beanies, blankets, ballistic bulletproof backpacks, so much gear from the satellite phone store. It is a major giveaway, and we just hope that everyone would consider the satellite phone store for your holiday gift giving. You can give the gift of preparedness from our amazing sponsors, and they are bringing a ton of free gear to the table. I cannot wait to just give away a ton of gear with Brett Miller. We're going to have so much fun. And yes, I saw you yesterday. You guys were asking about the power outage. You know, here I am, the preparedness girl, and I try not to be a hypocrite. But last week on Friday, the power went out in Fairport, New York, knocked out power for like 60,000 homes, mine included. And so we were out of power for like 4 or 5 hours at the Joy family household. And we don't have a generator. And so here I am kicking myself and getting pretty nervous about what we were going to do, how we were going to power the fridge, keep the food cold, all the things. And we had no idea when the power was going to go back on. Things were getting really cold. And it got me thinking about a generator and just backup ways to keep the essential items in your home operating even when the lights go out. And you guys have seen all of the news items out there about these massive data centers coming into communities and states across the country, sucking up the power, taxing the power grid. And now we're getting stories of blackouts and brownouts all over the country. And it is supposed to be a record cold winter. So I was just talking with Brett Miller about this morning, because now I'm talking about getting a generator from the satellite phone store. So we're going to be talking about that on Friday. And then, as I mentioned, we're just going to be giving a ton of gear away to all of you. So we're gonna have a mechanism set up. So mark your calendars for this Friday with Brett Miller of the satellite phone store. And we just want to bless all of you in as many ways as possible. So I'm really looking forward to that show. So welcome to the program today. We have a huge show lined up for all of you. You can see in the headline, we are going to be welcoming the amazing Nick Bryant into the Joy Virtual Studio at right around 12:40 p.m. Eastern Time. He is one of the world's foremost experts on the Epstein files, the Epstein victims, and that entire story. He is the guy that broke the Little Black Book of Epstein and also the flight logs for Lolita Express. So he's been following this story for decades, among other stories, and he's going to give us an update on what is going down with the release of the Epstein files and some other elements as well. Cannot wait to welcome Nick into the Joy Virtual Studio again, live in just about 20 minutes. So we're going to get updates on that. And, really with the Epstein scandal is a labyrinth. And it's not just about child sex trafficking, which is horrifying in and of itself. The Epstein labyrinth covers child sex trafficking, both girls and boys, blackmail, coercion of government officials and heads of state, money laundering, weapons trafficking, narcotics trafficking, and also geopolitical manipulation using a dark money apparatus, which Nick has recently written about in one of his pieces. He wrote a Substack. I can't speak, on December 3rd. It was really good. Jeffrey Epstein, child trafficker and geopolitical sculptor. There is a lot there with Jeffrey Epstein, and he is at the center point of even the expansion of technocracy and the power of the techno-fascists. Jeffrey Epstein was wrapped up in all of that and a key player as little as 10, 15, 20 years ago. So this is going to be a very important discussion with Nick Bryant. I can't wait to welcome him into the Joy Virtual Studio, but there are a couple other news items that I want to address here on the SJ Show in this first segment. Of course, we want to thank our sponsors, the satellite phone store, sat123.com/joy. Use that promo code JOY for 10% off all of your holiday gift giving, and they have price points that would suit every single budget. So please go and check them out. It helps us here at the Shannon and Joy Show when you patronize the sponsors of the Shannon and Joy Show and help their advertising to work. Also, PCM and Associates, Dom Polano, my financial advisor. He's been with us for 12 years. Dom was the original, the first sponsor of the Shannon and Joy Show over 12 years ago, which is just amazing. He's the only guy I trust to manage my finances, and he can help you as well. Go to PCMPolano.com. That's PCMPolano.com. Of course, we're thankful for Rocket Dollar. You're going to hear from them today. And also the Wellness Company through their sponsorship of On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, a production of Joy Media, a partnership between myself and Dr. Mary. Of course, her live show is all ready for tomorrow. She's going to have some amazing guests. And of course, tomorrow on the live show, we have our super fun crossover half hour. Myself, Mary Bowden, talking about the health freedom news that is going to impact you. So I want to direct your attention to the SJ top headlines for today, December 9th. And there are two stories here regarding health freedom that are very important that I want to draw your attention to. Evidence that the culture is winning when it comes to the expansion of medical freedom. We're getting nothing from this administration, nothing from the Trump administration, very little from HHS. But we are seeing action in the culture as more and more Americans, young moms and dads, are delaying or completely rejecting the childhood vaccine schedule. In addition, we're seeing uptake of the COVID-19 vaccines at record lows, under double digits, probably less than 10%. People realize that these shots are poison. And even though our government overlords refuse to pull them from the market, the American people and the culture are speaking very loudly. We don't want your shots. And that is great. But this is a great development from Children's Health Defense. This organization continues to be the tip of the spear in terms of all of the cultural pushback, legal challenges, legislative challenges, organization at the local and state level. I'm very involved with Children's Health Defense in New York State as we lobby in Albany a couple times a year to open up and expand religious freedom and also medical freedom. And this is a phenomenal headline, huge win. Let's start with the good news first. A huge win for health freedom in a Supreme Court ruling in favor of New York Amish families. I want you guys to check out that story. It is a critical ruling that is expanding medical freedom. Sujata Gibson, one of the attorneys in that case, said that this is groundbreaking. This is a bellwether. This signals that religious exemptions are coming back to New York State, and they're coming back fast. We'll be keeping an eye on this story. That is an absolute huge win. We also have the former CDC director calling for the removal of mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. That is from Epic Health. And that is a big win as well. We are inching our way towards truth. Yes, we're almost 12 months in to the presidency of Donald Trump and the reign of Bobby Kennedy Jr. at HHS. And while we're seeing very little from the apparatus of the federal government, we are seeing a lot of movement outside of DC. And that is really, really great news. So let's keep it up. What is the lesson here? Being nice doesn't work, right? Going in and seeking access and trying to play nice with legislators, elected officials, and even our champions, people we send in to Washington, D.C. to further the cause of medical freedom. Playing nice doesn't work, right? It's all about the transactional support. When they deliver for us, we will support them. When they don't, we will organize and activate and speak out loudly to challenge them. And people like myself, Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, Dr. Peter McCullough, Naomi Wolf, Sasha Latapova, Debbie Lerman, you name it, right? We have been out there ringing the alarm bells about the lack of movement from HHS, and we've gotten a lot of critique regarding that. In fact, people like Robert Malone calling us a hate group for standing up and speaking out and alerting people to this. But what are we learning? That works, right? Going out there and being critical, as long as you are in truth, is a highly impactful and effective political tactic. The organization is the most important thing. And that is what we're going to be focusing on here in the Shannon Joy Show. Zoe Joey 123, why do there need to be religious exemptions? Why can't you just say no? Why can't you just opt out? How is that a win? Well, I absolutely agree with you, Zoe 123. But we've been fighting like hell for the freedom to just say no. And I will tell you, despite that, we haven't been able to get any movement in New York State for the better part of 7 years. For the first time, we're seeing cracks in the case, and it's because of lawsuits that have been brought by Children's Health Defense and other organizational and legislative efforts we've made at the local level here in New York State that is penetrate. I agree with you that that is not a win. Every American, for any reason whatsoever, whether it's philosophical, religious, or they just don't want it, every American should be able to say no to an injection or a medical intervention. No government or corporation or entity of any sort should ever be allowed to force a person to undergo a medical intervention, including injections, against their will. We understand that baseline principle. The problem here in the United States of America is we haven't been able to do that as at all. So this is a step forward, Zoe Joey. And personally, I think that it is the camel's nose under the tent for expansion of medical freedom here in the U.S. So I hear what you're saying, but listen, when we have a win, let's celebrate it. And I can tell you, Sujata Gibson has been doing really, really great work on all of this. So thank you to Sujata and thank you to Children's Health Defense. There's also on another note, a viral Nick Fuentes video. And you guys know, I mean, I'm highly irritated by voices like Nick Fuentes. I think that he's a change agent. I think that he's bought and paid for. I don't know who is paying for him or buying him, but clearly the massive rift within the conservative community, they're all fighting. They're all fighting. Tim Pool, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly. It's just one big conservative fracas over God knows what. A lot of a talk about AIPAC and Israel and Qatar and all of the things. Meanwhile, none of them are reporting on the expansion of the techno-fascist state here in the U.S., which is really, really important. But they're all, up in this battle. And a lot of it has to do with Nick Fuentes at the very center and the movement of the MAGA community over to the quote unquote America First community. Well, Nick Fuentes, there's a viral video. I posted it out yesterday. I'm not going to play it today because we can probably do it tomorrow on the SJ show. But there is a viral video that has emerged of Nick Fuentes on January 6th agitating lawlessness from Capitol Hill, encouraging people to storm the Capitol. And this is now fueling more rumors and word on the street that Nick Fuentes is in the style of Ray Epps, maybe a Ray Epps Jr. style federal agent. Now, I have no idea if this is true. It's a rumor, word on the street. But listen, there are a lot of people that were arrested, thousands of people who were detained, interrogated, arrested, grandmothers from Topeka, Kansas, who just happened to be in Washington, D.C. on J6. They were geofenced and tracked by all sorts of surveillance operations. By the way, it was Palantir, the corporation linked at the hip with President Trump and enjoying billions of dollars in government largesse because of the Trump administration being in power. It was Palantir that conducted a lot of the mass surveillance, the drone technology, the geofencing, the targeting, and the tracking of American conservative patriots who went to Washington, D.C. on behalf of Donald Trump. Unbeknownst to them, they were part of a larger operation, swept into a dragnet, and tortured and tormented for the entirety of 4 years of the Biden administration. Completely abandoned, by the way, by Donald Trump for the better part of 3 years. He didn't mention the J6 prisoners again until he was campaigning in 2024 to win the presidency, which I thought was completely disgusting. Well, it turns out that Nick Fuentes was right there on Capitol Hill agitating lawlessness. And though he was detained, I believe he was questioned by the federal government, nothing really ever came of it. He got off scot-free. He wasn't detained. He wasn't arrested that I know of. And so that opens up a lot of questions. Be very careful who you choose to be a source for information as we move into 2026 and beyond. A lot of these influencers, sadly, tragically, those within the conservative media are being paid by organizations and not disclosing those payments, those sponsorships, that money to all of you. And so, discernment is going to be very, very important moving forward. I'll play that video for you tomorrow. You guys can decide for yourselves whether or not that strikes you as highly suspicious. You also see the headlines today. I've linked this in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. Food price controls and welfare for farmers. I have two stories here linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. The Trump administration rolling out what appears to be price controls, okay, rather than breaking up monopolies and destroying these massive global corporations who have been creating monopolies for the better part of the last decade, driving out competition and making life incredibly difficult for individual farmers, rather than moving to free market principles and getting rid of regulation and breaking up those trusts. No, it appears that Secretary Brooke Rollins is now moving towards price controls. This is a tweet that she pushed out. President issuing an executive order. Prices are starting to fall, she said, but too many families still aren't seeing the savings at checkout. Well, this is coming from the same administration that is telling us all that there isn't an affordability crisis, that this is the best economy ever, that they have solved everything, that everything is great. Yet on the other hand, they are now moving in to price controls, which are very socialistic policies, by the way. She said, prices are starting to fall, but too many families still aren't seeing the savings at checkout. That's why President Trump is aggressively moving forward to ensure there is no price fixing or anti-competitive games in the food supply chain. It's time for lower prices to actually reach the people. USDA will stand with the president in making sure these lower prices are felt by the consumer in the grocery stores across the country. I can assure you that they will not be embracing free market principles in order to get lower prices for all of you. The reason everything is more expensive is because they are printing trillions of dollars. That will never change. So inflation is happening everywhere, not just with food, with everything. And it has nothing to do with the supply chain as much as it has to do with the massive government effort to devalue your currency, your dollar, which means that your spending power decreases exponentially every time they continue to print more money. In addition, the president is now saying that they are going to embrace welfare for farmers because, well, the tariffs are kicking in and making things very difficult. This is why $12 billion now are being opened up to deliver back to the farmer. So this is the equivalent of breaking your leg and then, I don't know, selling you the crutches, okay? This is something that mobsters do. Farmers would do quite well if they were just allowed to engage in a free market economy. But because of so many government controls and subsidies, starting with corn subsidies, going back decades, layer upon layer of socialistic policies heaped onto the farming industry. And also, of course, the consolidation of massive food corporations that are driving out competition. This is what is squeezing the farming community, and layering on government welfare is not going to solve the problem. But those stories are linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. Once again, one bad fix after another that just makes things worse and worse and worse. By the way, Trump's tariffs are absolutely making it very difficult for small to medium sized businesses. Trump saying that 12 billion is going to come out of their tariff revenues. Those revenues were about 30 billion in the month of October. Didn't even touch the deficit. I think the federal spending was somewhere around 600,000 in October. The revenue receipt was in the 400,000 range. So the deficit was somewhere around, well over $200 billion. The tariffs accounted for about 30 billion of that, and now cut out another 12 billion that they are sending back to the farmers. It's just a nightmare. It makes no sense, and they're putting on one bad band-aid after another. So yeah, this is why we can't have nice things here in the US. Our government is corrupt. It was corrupt under Biden. It's now corrupt under Trump. And until the American people begin to realize that they're screwing us, regardless of which party is in the Oval Office, we're going to have more of the same. And things are going to continue to be bumpy into 2026. The numbers are not good. The numbers are very bad. And we have a lot of numbers shows coming up. Peter Schiff and Jack Gamble are joining us next week. We have Catherine Austin Fitz lined up and secured for an interview as well, among other amazing guests coming up. So we're going to get to the truth about what's going on with the economy and how you can obviously prepare and protect yourselves. So we're going to go to a quick break. So those are the headlines. The other one that I missed, Venezuela. We're going to go over a piece tomorrow that is really good. It's really good. It's an overview. We're going to be introducing a new guest on the Shannon Joy Show. I think you guys are going to really like her. Her name is Carrie Wedler. She wrote a piece on her Substack, Pleasure to Burn. The war on narco-terrorism is actually a war on you. So what is happening in Venezuela? The war drums are banging. Who is this good for? Well, it's good for the military-industrial complex. And that's it. No one else. Now, the president and Republicans are playing on Republicans and conservatives' belief in this country, patriotism, their dedication to law and order, making them think that everything is so bad here and we have to go to war with Venezuela in order to protect you from the big, bad, scary narco terrorists that are invading our country. Well, they've created the problem, and now they're going to spend another $1 trillion trying to craft a solution which only enriches them and destroys our own country and our own people. Her piece is really good. It's short, it's 2 pages, but it gives a 20-year history of this scam that they're running. And she's putting out some great content on her Twitter and her platforms. She's going to be on the Shannon Joy show in the next 2 weeks. I'm super excited. I think it's Tuesday of next week, maybe Monday. I forget. But we're going to look at that tomorrow. We're going to look at what is going on in Venezuela because essentially it's more of the same. Wow, Mark the Regan, I see you. Silver spot and futures are over $60 an ounce. Again, that is going to continue, guys, until we see sanity from the federal government, which frankly, I don't think we're going to see. All right. So it's all hands on deck, bottom up organization. We're going to have to fight back at the local level in the next couple years and organize there. Again, things are going to be bumpy. So yeah, we have a lot of great guests coming up in the next 2 weeks in the Shannon Joy show. Big guest coming up in just a couple minutes. We have Nick Bryant in the house. He is one of the world's foremost experts on the Epstein scandal and all of the areas that Jeffrey Epstein is connected that you need to know. We're going to get an update on what's happening with the release of the impending release of the Epstein files. We're going to get an update on all of that. He's also one of the most diligent and ferocious defenders of Epstein victims. And so I cannot wait to talk to Nick Bryant. It's been a while since he's been on the SJ show. We're going to have him back in for an update on all things Jeffrey Epstein. And we are going to be referencing a really important Substack that is linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy show for you guys to read. Jeffrey Epstein, child trafficker and geopolitical sculptor. It's the geopolitical sculptor that is quite important. It's not just about child sex trafficking, which is horrifying enough as it is. It's all of the other areas that Jeffrey Epstein was a center point of, and blackmail, coercion, money laundering, weapons trafficking, narcotics trafficking, you name it. The most important being the creation and the building of the techno-fascist apparatus that we are dealing with and grappling with today. Epstein was a central player in all of it. And we're going to talk to Nick Bryant about all of that in just a moment on the Shannon Joy show. Keep it tuned right here. We'll be back in a minute. And Mary and I came together trying to figure out, how we're going to do this show. They were there for us with sponsorship that helped us to put this together and get it on the air. So we are super, super thankful for them. And they have a great new product. I don't know if you guys have ever been struggling or if you are struggling with mood swings, low energy, or hormonal imbalances. Venus and Mars are 2 great new products from the Wellness Company. They're doctor-formulated nutraceuticals designed to restore balance, energy, and vitality without synthetic hormones or stimulants. Ladies, Venus supports estrogen and progesterone balance. It eases PMS and cramping while also boosting your energy with clinically dosed ingredients like DIM, maca, Vitex, and broccoli sprouts. There is no fluff and no filler in this product. Now for the fellas, Mars has a product that naturally increases your testosterone, enhances circulation, and improves strength and focus with tongatali, tribulus, horny goat weed, and zinc. And every ingredient is present in a meaningful and safe dose. There are no gimmicks, just clean daily hormone support for both men and women. And I hear it also helps a little bit in the bedroom as well, but we won't go there. If you are a couple looking for a boost, Venus and Mars will have you feeling like you are on another planet. Head to twchealth.com/Mary and use the promo code MARY to get 10% off plus free shipping. That's twc.health/Mary and use the promo code MARY, MARY, to get 10% off plus free shipping. Thank you to Satellite Phone Store, sat123.com/joy, sat123.com/joy. Without their amazing sponsorship, we couldn't bring the show to you every day. And it's always 10% off for every Joy viewer and listener with the promo code JOY. Why do we love them? Well, among other things, the satellite phones, the generators, the solar panels, everything you need for when the lights go out. They also have the most extensive line, one of the best quality lines of Faraday technology, beanies, bags, blankets, apparel. This is a way for you to reduce your body's exposure to EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. And as we know, talking to Dr. Williams, that exposure can impact your heart health. And so a regular usage of that type of technology, super helpful. Again, so thankful to the Satellite Phone Store, among our other sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Without further ado, I'm so pleased to welcome once again into the Joy Virtual Studio our good friend, Nick Bryant. He is, as I mentioned, likely one of the world's foremost experts on Epstein, the Epstein files, the Epstein scandal, everything having to do with Jeffrey Epstein and his ties to intelligence, to foreign governments, all sorts of things. The child sex trafficking, horrifying on its face. We're going to start there today. But people don't realize how deeply embedded Jeffrey Epstein was in geopolitical circles, and the movement of, an enormous amount of dark money spanning over 2 decades. So Nick Bryant, welcome back to the show. It's great to see you. Please follow him on Twitter and support his work over at EpsteinJustice.com. That's EpsteinJustice.com. Hey, Nick, how are you?
Not too bad. Great to be with you, Shannon.
Absolutely. And how are you feeling? I know you were a little under the weather yesterday. Feeling better?
I am.
Good.
A little orange juice and some vitamins. I'm ready to roll.
Okay, there we go. Annie, I'm getting some feedback on my mic. I'm not sure if it is something on my end or something on Nick, but when I hear him, I'm getting the double audio. So if we can't just take a look at that. Yeah, Nick's getting it as well. So, all right. Yep. So we're just going to wait a couple seconds to get that taken care of, and then we'll move in to the interview. I see all of you on the live chat. Hey, Zen Woman, good to see you. Lupine, great to see you as well. LT Oracle of Truth, I'm glad to see you. If you guys are on the live chat right now on Rumble, please make sure to leave a comment, ask a question, give us a thumbs up if you're watching on any of the SJ platforms, whether it's Substack, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube. It helps so much for you to leave a comment and give us a thumbs up. It helps us with the algorithm. So if we are good to go, I think that the audio is working. So Nick, let's try that again. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be with you, Shannon.
Yes, perfect. Sounds amazing. All right. Well, why don't we start here, Nick? Let's just give an overview. The Epstein case is a labyrinth. There is a lot going on, and there has been a flurry of activity over the past 45 days or so. Wondering if you can just update us on where we are in the release of the Epstein files, what we've seen from what has been released, and where we are in terms of justice for victims as we try to get to the actual perpetrators and see if we can't hold them accountable for the things that they did to little children. So let's start there. I'm going to hand the show over to you and just let you kind of update the audience as to where we are and where we're going.
Well, Virginia Giuffre's book came out, Nobody's Girl, and it's been a runaway bestseller, which is great because it's really shown a light onto Epstein's trafficking, both with children and adults. And Virginia was a supernova. I mean, she shone really bright and shine that light in a lot of very dark corners. And I'm very happy that her book is become a runaway bestseller, and it's really pierced the mainstream media, which is really substantial. Unfortunately, she's not here to enjoy her success because she committed suicide in April.
Right.
And I wrote an article about her death. It was called A Requiem for Virginia Giuffre. And I felt like I had to do that. I knew Virginia, and we talked a number of times and exchanged a number of emails. And I felt really horrible about her death. And I wanted to get to the bottom of it. And then when I saw that there was internet speculation that the Mossad killed her, that she was alive and living with Jeffrey Epstein, things like that, I really felt like I had to kind of set that record straight.
Can you remind us, just tell Virginia's story again, and maybe address some of those rumors and speculation? She was a very important, critical component in the takedown of a part of some parts of the Epstein apparatus, which was, as we'll discuss later, much bigger than just Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, he was part of a much larger dark apparatus that in many ways is still in place that we should probably address. But just so that we can honor Virginia and her courage and her work and her bravery, what she did, what she contributed, I'd love to give you an opportunity to just kind of recount her story for the audience as we set the stage for this conversation.
Virginia had a horrific story, as a lot of victims do. She was molested by her father when she was 6 years old, and that molestation occurred over a number of years. And then I believe when she was 8, her father pimped her out to one of his friends. And then by the time she was 12, she was put into this really strange institution. And the goal of this institution, I think, was to break down the kids. when where there were when treatment centers and rehab started very early on in the 70s, they felt it was important to break down the addicts and the alcoholics that were in the rehab by putting them in diapers, giving them dunce hats, things like that. And at a certain point, there was a revolution that really, and it was realized that these people have broken themselves down enough. We need to build them up. And that whole paradigm really shifted in the 80s. But the institution that Virginia was put in was still deploying those types of demeaning tactics to the kids. And she ran away a number of times. And by the time she was 12, she was selling herself on the streets. And by the time she was 14 or 15, she was just sitting on a curb after being raped. And she met an individual named Ron Eppinger, who was a pedophilic pimp. And he put her in an apartment, and pedophiles would visit day and night. And the FBI was closing on Eppinger. Excuse me. So he gave Virginia to a friend of his who owned a couple of nightclubs, or a nightclub in the Fort Lauderdale area. And the FBI kicked down his door, and Virginia was in bed with him. And he was arrested, and Virginia was taken into custody, and her father ultimately didn't send her back to that institution, which was good. He got her, he was a maintenance man at Trump's Mar-a-Lago, and he got her a job at Mar-a-Lago. And that's when she unfortunately met Maxwell.
And was this the source of the rumor that that I saw something reported that, Trump was irritated that Jeffrey Epstein stole her away from him, or she was working for him, and somehow Epstein took a liking to her? Is there any truth, do you know, to that story? Or
well, there's an email where Jeffrey Epstein is, I don't know who the email is to, but he's addressing this, and he said that Trump never kicked him out. He was never a member, although the email Epstein wrote that Trump did tell Ghislaine Maxwell to stop getting girls from Mar-a-Lago. So,
which would indicate that Trump had some knowledge of their operation and what they were doing, and that there were underage girls. And this was released in the latest tranche of emails. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Horrifying.
And Maxwell and Epstein didn't really have to groom Virginia because she had been in that sordid world for so long
Mm,
that she didn't need to be groomed. She was ready to go. And they started to exploit her very, very quickly. And
horrifying.
and in her book, she talks about being molested by various very powerful people.
And
And
she named names, correct?
she didn't. She named names during a deposition, but the book doesn't name many of the people that abused her. She named Prince Andrew
Right.
in the book, and that's kind of a slam dunk, I think. And
Right.
but there were she talked about a prime minister
Mm.
who was very sadistic to her in the book, and she has since said that that was Ehud Barak, the is former Israeli prime minister.
Mm. Can you talk about how she escaped and how she became emancipated from the lifestyle and and Epstein, and then found the courage to help so many other victims in going public with her story?
Well, Virginia, the carrot that was put in front of Virginia, and these people use the carrot or the stick depending upon which is most beneficial to an individual. And the carrot was that they were going to put her through massage school, so really wanted to become a masseuse. And actually, I think she was reading a book about massage when Maxwell
Okay.
picked her up, and they sent her to Thailand to take a course on massage, but she was also ordered to bring back. I guess they'd purchased a girl in
Mm.
Thailand, and she was ordered to bring back that girl. And she met someone from Australia, and they hit it off, and they were married within a week. She had told him what she was involved in,
Wow.
and they were married within a week, and then he brought her to Australia. That's how she ultimately liberated herself.
Wow.
And he seems like a Prince Charming throughout the book, but he was a Prince Charming that turned into an Ivan the Terrible,
Mm.
unfortunately.
Right.
Because I do believe that he was beating her up pretty viciously. And there's a photograph on the internet that has bounced around of her having black and blue marks and looking very beat up. And it was thought that it was a bus that she'd been hit by a bus. Well, she was in a car that got hit by a bus, but that was not what caused that particular picture. That picture was caused by a beating that her
Yeah.
husband had administered to her.
So she remained with this husband up until her suicide.
Actually, they had separated, and Virginia talks about attempting suicide a couple of times in the prior year before she committed suicide, and I think that there might have been some chemical dependency too.
Right.
And but she loved her children, and I believe that she was a very good mother. But her husband used a number of things in her past to be awarded the children
Mm.
before that before it could be adjudicated. And I think that that was the fact that she was segregated from her children and the domestic violence, I think, superimposed on her prior traumas ultimately led to her suicide.
Mm. One of the themes among so many of these victims is the fact that the torture, the abuse is so sadistic and prevalent that many of them do have mental health issues, obviously. They resort to substance abuse, obviously. They resort to alcoholism, obviously. Many of them uh, suffer from a sort of multi-personality disorder in some cases because they have to disassociate from themselves when they're being subjected to these abuse techniques and these horrifying situations. And the issue here is that the victims are often quite damaged. I mean, they're not this kind of perfect version of a witness that can sit on the stand, and they're very broken. And this has been one of the problems that you have seen. It's one of the reasons, Nick, that you have dedicated a big portion of your career and your life to actively support the victims and give the victims a voice, because they are routinely torn apart. We saw this happen with Virginia Giuffre, and we see this happening regularly, and it will continue to be an impediment, I think, to getting to justice, right? But that doesn't mean that they don't deserve a voice. But can you speak to that for a moment and speak to what Virginia Giuffre did to help other victims? Even though tragically she took her life, there was a lot that she did to open doors for other victims so that their voices could be heard and they would have courage as well. But I was hoping you could speak to that.
Well, victims of child sexual abuse, their suicide rate is 3 times higher
Yeah.
than the general population.
Yeah.
And they also have a tendency to find partners that are violent. So Virginia pretty much followed that pattern. But what she did when she was alive, she took on Ghislaine Maxwell and also Prince Andrew, and to a certain degree, Alan Dershowitz. And she was really, really strong. And Virginia really wanted to set up an organization that would help victims of sexual abuse. And at a certain point, there was radio silence. She just stopped returning emails and phone calls from myself and a number of other people. And I don't think any of us had really any idea of what was happening to her. But at that point, I think that she was experiencing tremendous physical abuse from her husband, and also probably there was some chemical dependency too.
Yeah.
So between those two things, I think she just kind of disengaged.
Yeah. Absolutely tragic, and very sad that she's not alive to see some of the steps that have been taken over the past 90 days by people like Ro Khanna and Tom Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene, a truly, crazy enough, bipartisan push to have the Epstein files fully released. And this is something that surviving victims are now demanding. And we saw for the first time, we had you on to discuss that truly unbelievable press conference where the victims stood up, they showed their faces, they spoke out on Capitol Hill. And miraculously, that bill was passed. The bill was signed by the President of the United States of America. After months and months of pushback, the empty binders propaganda attempt, the gaslighting of Trump's own voters and supporters by telling them that the Epstein scandal was a Democrat hoax. We saw months and months of attempts by this administration, by FBI officials, Kash Patel, and also Pam Bondi, the head of the Department of Justice, these attempts to suppress and gaslight the American people about the nature of those files and the nature of the scandal there. Amazingly, the culture pushed back. Left and right came together, regular Americans, and said, no, you know what? That's not okay. We want these documents. And it's been about a month or so since President Trump signed that bill, and we have yet to see a lot of the documents. We're kind of in that's in motion right now. They're releasing some. We saw, like, as I mentioned, a tranche of emails come out. Where are we? What are your opinions now on the status of the release of these documents? And then we'll get ultimately to justice for some of these victims right now as I talk to you today.
I'm very skeptical of the Department of Justice and FBI under Trump
Hmm.
to release documents that are truly damaging. The only way that there's going to be justice here is if we get indictments. If we don't get indictments, all this will be much ado for nothing. But it's important that we get indictments. And I do believe that the Justice Department is certainly sitting on files that could lead to indictments. But I don't expect the Trump administration to give us those documents. In July, on July 5th, the Department of Justice and FBI released a very strange document. It said that Donald Trump, it said that there were over 1,000 victims, which I agree with. But then it said that Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell acted alone, which is,
You mean Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And they acted alone, which is really, really absurd. And there were 300 gigabytes, and I guess a lot of that was child abuse material. And that document said that Epstein had downloaded it from the internet, whereas before Pam Bondi had said that it was Epstein and young girls. That a lot of the footage was Epstein and young girls. So the Trump administration has done everything it possibly can to quash any mean. The discharge petition that was started by Massey and Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna, the Trump administration did everything it could to hijack that.
Right.
Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, adjourned the House early so it couldn't vote on it. And then he started telling pathological lies like Donald Trump was an FBI informant on Epstein, and he had to walk that back because it was just so ridiculous. And then his refusal to really swear in that representative from Arizona and she would have been the 218th vote. So he did everything in his power, and Patel and Bondi did everything in their power to make sure that there wouldn't be a vote. And when the vote became inevitable, then he gave in. And I think that now, because I had thought, because with the discharge petition, you had to get 218 votes. And then it would be voted on in the House as a resolution, and you needed 218 votes.
Right.
And then it had to go to the Senate, and the Senate Majority Leader is John Thune, and he could have killed it by himself.
Right.
But, and he also had said things that led one to believe that he was going to kill it. But even if he didn't kill it, you'd need a majority in the Senate, and then it would have to be signed by Trump. So when Trump saw that this was inevitable, that's when things changed.
Can I pause you for a moment there on that?
Because many people, when I report on this story, they accuse Ro Khanna and Tom Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene as just pulling a political stunt, right? That this was just for building email lists, making money, getting donations. They knew that Trump, even if the discharge petition went through, that Trump would squash it with the DOJ and with his FBI apparatus. And it appears as if they're trying to do that. And I would always push back against people saying that, you know, just the movement of the culture pressing, just the fact that there was so much political pressure from the outside, from the culture as a whole, that forced many of these members of Congress into supporting this petition, that ultimately forced Trump's hand and made him sign it. From my perspective, that was a win. It was a worthwhile endeavor. It was a worthy cause. I don't think it's over yet. I understand your skepticism, and we're going to have to keep an eye on that. But do you share that position as well? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
89% of Americans want to see Epstein transparency.
Right.
Which is huge. when I
Right.
first started investigating this type of phenomena in 2002, 2003, people thought I'd lost my mind. And I spent 7 years writing a book called The Franklin Scandal, which the Epstein network, trafficking network, is very much almost a carbon copy of the Franklin network. And that was published 2009, 2010, and we could not get anyone to buy that book.
Right.
It was just way ahead of its time. And with Epstein now, Americans see that the government covered up child trafficking.
Right.
And I've got a relative who he's a Trump supporter. He was in the military, and he's working for a military contractor now. And he's also a born again Christian. And his capacity for denial has never ceased to amaze me.
Wow.
And even he realizes that the government has covered up Epstein-related child trafficking. So, and a number of people have approached me and said, Nick, I thought you were kind of crazy when you were saying that, but now I realize that you're right.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in Greenwich Village. I live in New York City. I was in Greenwich Village some months ago, and someone ran up to me and he was going, "You were right. You were right." And he was a friend of a friend. And
Yeah.
he just was screaming, "You were right." So that has been very cool for me to see. It shows that my work it's been, the Epstein scandal has corroborated my work. And actually, the Franklin scandal is selling better now than it ever has before,
That's wild. That's
which
wild.
is really cool.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the reasons that you're an expert on the Shannon Joy Show, Nick, is your willingness to look at the Epstein scandal and the Epstein situation from a nonpartisan perspective. So when you try to learn about the Epstein scandal and go to left-wing news media, they will tell the story from the prism of Trump's involvement or Trump's connection to Epstein and that network. And if you try to learn about this from right-wing news outlets, they will tell the story from the perspective of the Democrats as the villains. Epstein's relationship to the Clintons, Epstein's relationship to Richardson and Democrats. But none of them, and this is what drives me crazy, none of them have the honesty, the intellectual honesty to say, listen, this is a bipartisan problem. This is both parties working together to cover up child rapists, and not just little girls, but little boys as well, which is one of the stories that I'm glad is coming out. More and more people are beginning to scrutinize how little boys are trafficked as well to predators, vicious, monstrous predators with enormous amounts of power in Washington, D.C. And it is continuing mainly because both parties are complicit in trying to keep a lid on this. And so I thank you, Nick. It's one of the reasons that I think you've been suppressed, that your reporting has been suppressed, is because you were one of the only ones who tells the truth about this. Your thoughts?
I haven't. The mainstream media has more or less boycotted me.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I was going to be on CNN. There was a document dump of Epstein documents. I don't know, a couple of years ago, and CNN contacted me because I was the guy that released the Black Book and the flight logs in 2015.
Right.
And they wanted me to comment on the latest document release. And so I talked to the producer and we were texting throughout the day, and I was going to go in the studio and talk about the latest dump of documents. And I texted the producer, I said, I'd like to talk a little bit about Epstein justice. While we talk about these documents. And then I got a text back about 5 or 10 minutes later saying, Nick, we're going to go in another direction.
Right.
And then
Right.
I was going to be on a Fox affiliate. And
Right.
there was a junior producer that had read the Franklin scandal and really wanted me to comment. And she was really gung-ho on getting me on that particular show that she produced. And the senior producer was going through my publisher, and the senior producer, I talked to her for, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes, the senior producer. And I remember exactly where I was at, and I remember exactly what I said. And the senior producer told my publisher that I sounded incoherent when when she talked to me. And I've been accused of a lot of things, but incoherence has never been one of them.
Wow.
These are the kind of problems that I've had with the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Newsmax was letting me on for a while, and then the memo, these producers got the memo that, no more Nick Bryant.
Yeah.
So, but yes, I am nonpartisan, and I have a very good idea of how this works because I've been at it since 2002, 2003.
Yep.
And I could be I could be a huge help to the government,
Yeah.
the Department of Justice, if it actually wanted to investigate this case, if it actually wanted indictments. I could be hugely helpful, I think.
Wow. We're talking to Nick Bryant. You can support his efforts over at epsteinjustice.com. That's epsteinjustice.com. Make sure you follow him on Twitter for updates. He's still following the story. Again, likely the world's foremost expert on this topic. He's been at it for over 20 years. We're going to go to a quick break, Nick. And then when we come back, I want to expand out to discuss the Epstein network, the network that created him, emboldened him, and how it is much larger than just child sex trafficking. It is geopolitical in nature, and it is shaping our geopolitical world today as we speak. It's why we have to continue to push for the truth in all of this. But before we go to break, just quickly, you mentioned that there should be indictments. You mentioned that that's how we'll know that this effort truly is having impact, aside from the cultural understanding and awareness of the depravity of the people who are running things in Washington, D.C. They are predators. They are vicious predators. We all need to understand that. Who's most vulnerable? Who are the names? Tom Massey named some names, like very prominent people in the United States of America, heads of business, heads of state, music producers, you name it. Who do you think is the most vulnerable? And who do you think, or which group do you think we'd have the best shot at actual indictments and actually putting in prison for raping little children, in your opinion?
I mean, if the Department of Justice had the will, we could start getting indictments next week. And here's how that would go. And when the mafia has gone after, when the Department of Justice has gone after the mafia in RICO cases, they've taken small fry crooks and given them a number of RICO predicates where they're looking at a lot of years, and then they've ultimately rolled over on their bosses.
Right.
And this can be done. We know who a lot of the procurers are, actually, and the procurers are even in some of Epstein's emails.
Right.
And the New York Times has named a number of them, and Politico has named a number of them. We know who they are. They could be picked up next week, and a grand jury could indict them on multiple counts of child trafficking, which is a heavy sentence in the federal system. It's 15 to life. And because they were at it for years, you could indict them on multiple counts of child trafficking. And after they're looking at 1,000 years, they would start rolling over on the perps.
That's right.
It would be that easy. That easy. If our Department of Justice had the will. This could have been taken care of a long time ago.
Could this happen at the state level?
I think that it could, but what we want is a sea change. And the only way that we're going to get the sea change is with the federal government.
Well, if there were multiple actions at the state level from red states, blue states, AGs across the country doing all kinds of little things, couldn't that place pressure on DOJ if they know that these investigations or these potential prosecutions are happening at the state and local level, wouldn't that pressure them into doing something themselves?
It would, but with the state investigations of Epstein, what we've seen is total cover-ups. We saw it in Florida. I mean, Epstein operated with impunity in
Right.
New Mexico, and New Mexico governors Bruce King and Bill Richardson, they were part of Epstein's network.
Right.
Virginia Giuffre said that she'd been molested by both, and Alfredo Rodriguez, Epstein's house manager, had circled both in the Black Book. So Epstein didn't even have to register as a sex offender when he was
Right.
in New Mexico. And then in New York, he tried to get his status as a sex offender downgraded. And the New York district attorney's office actually tried to help him, but the judge said no way. So for us to get justice here, I think it has to come from the federal government.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, 12 years of reporting on politics at the local, state, and federal level, what I have learned is that very often it's the organizational efforts, the cultural efforts, and a lot of stuff happening at the local level that ends up pushing the federal government to actually move forward. And so, I would encourage people to continue to lobby their elected officials at every level to stop the sex trafficking of children in the United States of America. I think it's a very local policing issue. It's something that we should be addressing locally with local sheriff's departments and in our own communities. And I think that would go a lot way to move that pressure. I have a lot of questions. A lot of people on the live chat, Nick, are asking about what is going on, and we'll go to break right after this. What is going on at the New Mexico ranch? Is there some new development or some new story about because yes, New Mexico was one of the bases of operation for Epstein. There's a cover up there, clearly politically, from Bill Richardson, who was named as one of the predators. Any information there that I don't even recall seeing any reporting on anything going on in New Mexico, but is there anything I'm missing here?
I think some very strange things went on in New Mexico, but it's really difficult to put our finger on exactly what happened.
What was strange about it?
Okay, according to Juliet Bryant, she was at the New Mexico ranch of Jeffrey Epstein, if you want to call it a ranch, and she passed out. I think she might have been roofied or something to that nature. And she said that she came to, and there was a woman doctor that was harvesting her eggs, and I do believe that Virginia Giuffre, Maxwell and Epstein tried to have her carry a baby. That was one of their baby or some baby.
Wow.
But in 1996, Dolly the sheep was cloned. And even before I got into all this crazy stuff, I kind of thought, well, if a sheep can be cloned, humans can be cloned. And actually, a human can be cloned for about $1.5 million. So I believe that, I believe then, and I definitely believe now, that these billionaire megalomaniacs were cloning themselves.
Would try to, at least. See, I don't believe that Dolly the sheep was ever cloned. I think that was a psyop. I think they'd like to think, they'd like us to believe they can clone things. I see that with the techno-fascists, that they like to project this godlike ability to do all of these like crazy things. And now I haven't really done, I have not investigated the Dolly the sheep thing, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now, but I agree with you on this. Like, we are dealing with megalomaniac, control freak, sociopathic, narcissistic psychopaths. And if they could do that, believe me, they would. And this is what I try to educate my audience on. Like, you have to begin to see the people in Washington, D.C. and these massive global corporate leaders for what they really are. And they are, in their very nature, predators. Far too many of us here in the US believe that they have our best interests at heart. They want to help. They actually want to solve things, which is hilarious. No, they don't want to solve anything. They want you enslaved. They want you entrapped. They want you in poverty. They want to control you, and they want to own everything, likely including you. Like, this is where I think people need to be all American citizens. Like, this is the way you look at people in Washington, D.C., from my perspective, because I don't think you can get to Washington, D.C. unless you've made some kind of little deal with the devil. And that's just my observation over, the past 12 years. I think there are some good people in D.C., but like that many. Today, we're talking to Nick Bryant. We have to go to break. But when we come back, I want to expand this discussion over the next 10 minutes, Nick, if we could, into the larger apparatus. I saw someone mention a couple weeks ago that it's also critical to understand that the Jeffrey Epstein network wasn't just about Jeffrey Epstein. It wasn't even necessarily his network. He is a plug-in. He is a player. He was part of it, one of the sloppier players, I think, which is what got him caught up in all of this. But I think people need to understand the larger apparatus, at this point at least, is still in place. And I'd like to look at that apparatus with you, Nick Bryant, when we come back on the Shannon Joy Show. Keep it tuned right here. We'll be back in a moment. You might want to consider checking out Rocket Dollar. Go to www.rocketdollar.com/Shannon Joy, and you can get an IRA information packet. You can start investing as soon as your account is funded. And with the self-directed IRA, you can invest in a variety of alternative assets outside of what many believe is a corrupt and bloated, inflated stock market dominated predominantly by the tech companies. So you can invest in real estate in your own backyard, right? In your own community. You can invest in private equity or a startup, even precious metals, gold and silver. They have the self-directed gold and silver backed IRAs, which is real gold and silver that is funded through your IRA. These are all ways for you to use your IRA accounts to your benefit and stop partnering with the federal government. So go to rocketdollar.com/Shannonjoy. That is rocketdollar.com/Shannonjoy. Just want to tell you a little bit about my financial advisor. He's been with me for over 15 years, Don Polano of PCM and Associates. As you all know, my philosophy on investing is all of the above. So I'm hugely bullish on gold and silver, physical gold and silver, and also the gold and silver IRA. I also love real estate, which I can't get into right now because it's too overpriced. So that's kind of a bummer. But I also have money in the stock market, the good old traditional stock market. Now, right now, I am not in tech stocks at all whatsoever. I have very, very boring stocks and some international. And this is what I love about Don Polano is that he knows, he respects my belief system. He shares my belief system. And for what I do have in the stock market, in those investments for my retirement, he takes great care of me. He helps people all over the country and the world. And he is taking on clients, opening it up to all of you. So if you go to 1-800, if you call 1-800-536-1368, that is 1-800-536-1368. You can talk to Dom and get started. If you are unsure of the politics of your financial advisor, or if you're a little jittery about the stock market right now and you want to move some things around, he is your guy. You can also go to PCMPolano.com to learn more about him. That is PCMPolano.com. It is wonderful to have a financial analyst and advisor who shares my values, and that's Don Polano. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Big shout out to our friends and sponsors over at the Satellite Phone Store. Go to sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy for everything that you need for when the lights go out. And as you know, just a little under a week ago, the lights went out at the Joy household in Fairport, New York. We had a massive outage and we were out of power for about 4 or 5 hours. And it dawned on me, well, I probably should have some type of backup plan. At the satellite phone store, they have everything you need to power your home when the lights go out. They have small portable generators, some of them powered by solar panels, and they have massive whole house generators, all kinds of plans so that they can make it affordable for you. But this is an area that I'm moving into. We're hearing all of the stories about brownouts and blackouts. We're hearing all of the stories about massive data centers and the technocrats coming in and sucking off the national grid, leading to power outages across the country. I think that this is going to become a norm rather than the exception. And this is why home generation or whole house generators are in such demand right now. Well, you can begin to look into that for your home by going to sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. They have a great 800 number right at the top of the page. You can talk to a specialist. They answer the phone on the first ring and it's a real human. This is what I love about the satellite phone store. They'll take such great care of all of you. And of course, when you use that JOY promo code, you get 10% off. That is a massive savings if you're looking at something like a generator. So make sure you use that promo code and have a conversation with the team over at Satellite Phone Store today. So thank you to sat123.com/joy for all of your support, and also consider them anytime you need to power your home for when the lights go out. Okay, without further ado, let's bring back Nick Bryant into the Joy Virtual Studio for the second part of our discussion. He is one of the world's foremost experts on the Epstein scandal, but also the Epstein network. And what I think a lot of people miss, Nick Bryant, one of the biggest things that people miss is that everything Epstein, it is a bipartisan problem. Both Republicans and Democrats in positions of power have sought to suppress the Epstein scandal and have sought to protect child rapists and sex traffickers. That's a very critical element. The other critical element that I think people miss is the largeness of the Epstein network and how it expanded outside of just child trafficking. It involved blackmail and coercion of heads of states, judges, corporate leaders, geopolitical leaders across the globe. It also involved money laundering, weapons trafficking, narcotics trafficking, and also geopolitical manipulation using a dark money apparatus. This is something that Whitney Webb and also Catherine Austin Fitts have delved into in some of their reporting. Really glad to see, Nick Bryant, that you're diving into this as well, and you have some thoughts on all of that. So why don't I hand the show over to you, if you can help us, help the audience to understand how the Epstein network is not just about Jeffrey Epstein. It's something actually much larger. And what have you found in your investigation over the past few months as you begin to focus on this?
Well, if I was Team Evil and I had a draft choice, I had a number of draft choices. Jeffrey Epstein would be like a first round draft choice. Not only was he a blackmailer and a pedophilic pander, which I think there has been a lot of evidence for, but he was also a money launderer and he facilitated arms deals. When I originally got into Epstein, Les Wexner, who is a billionaire, L Brands, gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney over every penny that he had in 1991.
Wow.
And Vanity Fair reported, and I'm not making this up, it's so crazy. Vanity Fair reported that the reason why Les Wexner gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney over his possibly billions, all his money, is because he was lonely. So, and then,
come on.
And then Leon Black gave Jeffrey Epstein $160, $170 million. And a number of media outlets have reported this. It wasn't because he was lonely. It was because Jeffrey Epstein was helping him with his taxes.
Okay.
And I initially thought that this was blackmail. I mean, that's what I initially thought. And blackmail might be integral to it. But Jeffrey Epstein, I think, was a world-class money launderer. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
believe that he was taking dark money and laundering. So, in addition to being a pedophilic pimp, a blackmailer, he was also a money launderer. But there's been some emails that have come out. There was a Palestinian hacker group, and they hacked into the former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak's emails from 2013 to 2016. And
Right.
Ehud Barak was a very good friend of Jeffrey Epstein's, and according to Virginia Giuffre, a kind of a violent pedophilic perpetrator.
Hmm.
But these emails are really mind-boggling. The emails that have been released by the Oversight Committee show that Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump had a relationship long after Trump said they no longer had a relationship.
Right.
But these emails between Ehud Barak and Jeffrey Epstein, I mean, they really show the kind of power that Jeffrey Epstein harnessed. And Israel has been a trendsetter in cyber technology, cyber warfare technology. When it comes to surveillance or malware, I mean, Israel has really been a superlative trendsetter in that area. And Jeffrey Epstein was heavily involved in helping Israel sell their various technologies to various third world countries. And there's a number of email exchanges between Epstein and Ehud Barak where the Israelis decide that they're going to sell Mongolia weaponry. I think with not only cyber technology, but also just weaponry. And so Jeffrey Epstein taps his pal at the International Peace Institute, and they put together what's called the Mongolian Advisory Board.
Okay.
And the Mongolian Advisory Board has the former Prime Minister of Norway, the former Prime Minister of Australia, and then Epstein emails Ehud Barak and said, I think we should have Larry Summers join the board. And Larry Summers is a friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and
Right.
he was responsible for he was Clinton's Treasury Secretary, and he was responsible for the repeal of Glass-Steagall, which didn't allow banks to, either a bank had to be a regular bank or it could be like a hedge fund or speculative. And there was a very strong line between those two.
Right.
But Glass-Steagall eradicated that, and that ultimately led to the meltdown in 2000, our financial meltdown in 2008, where the world
Right.
became the largest casino.
Right.
So Larry Summers, and then after Larry Summers helped pass legislation that would destroy our economy and the world economy, then he was awarded he became president of Harvard. But he was a little on the misogynistic side, and he said that that women just weren't innately talented enough as men in science and mathematics. So that kind of led to his demise as
I
president of
remember
Harvard,
that.
the
Mhm.
oldest university. But Jeffrey Epstein said, "Yeah, he sends an email to Ehud Barak, let's recruit Larry Summers too." So Larry Summers joined the Mongolian Advisory Board. And ultimately, Israel worked out a deal with Mongolia where they sold them some pretty high power technology.
Wow.
And especially technology that Israel had developed, cyber technology, but also just I also believe just 20th century technology too.
Yeah.
So, and then Ehud Barak wanted to sell a surveillance system to a dictator in Africa. well, I guess various dictators, but we've got emails on one specifically. And the United Nations had an arms boycott or arms embargo against this. It was Ivory Coast, the African country, Ivory Coast. And Ehud Barak and Epstein manipulated, and then ultimately the arms embargo was lifted, so this heavy-duty surveillance equipment could be sold to the president of Ivory Coast.
Wow.
To consolidate his power. And Israel wanted to take out Assad of Syria, and Epstein, through some back channels with oligarchs, hooked up Putin and Ehud Barak. And Ehud Barak asked Putin, can we take, you don't mind if we take Assad out? And Putin said, no, I don't want you to take Assad out. So Israel didn't take Assad out. So
wow,
that's the kind of juice that Jeffrey Epstein harnessed. I think that he may have been one of the more powerful men in the world. I mean, I really do. I mean, looking at these emails,
here's the
mind-boggling.
Here's a question. You know, there's a lot of speculation that Jeffrey Epstein worked for intelligence. There's dispute as to whether he was working for the Mossad or for the CIA or both. But what I'm hearing from you in this interview is that it appeared that Jeffrey Epstein was more of a somewhat free agent. And I have seen it reported that he was incredibly brilliant. I mean, when you talk about the ability to launder money, like he was a savant. You know, there's some reporting from Whitney Webb as to just how talented he was at the art of moving dark money. And so if you have a figure like Jeffrey Epstein working with American billionaires, global billionaires, global heads of state, I think the story begins to emerge that you know, did these intelligence agencies own Jeffrey Epstein, or was he kind of connected in all of them? I mean, it's truly astounding. What are your thoughts on that? Who did he work for, in your opinion?
That question has been asked a lot, and he definitely worked with, I mean, the emails between Ehud Barak and Epstein definitely showed that Epstein was part of Israeli intelligence, because
Absolutely.
and because a number of the things that he was peddling were made by the Israeli state, not just private enterprises within Israel, but the Israeli state. But I also believe, and I've got a couple of rationales for that, that he was working for the CIA too. And my first rationale is that I just don't see the CIA or the dark malignant corner of the CIA that compromises people and compromises them with children. I just don't see them being cool with the Mossad compromising American politicians on American soil without getting a cut of that intelligence. I just don't see it.
Right.
And Epstein had that sweetheart deal in 2007 and 2008, and Alexander Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney, they were aware, they had a list of 34 victims. I believe that they were aware of 40 victims.
Right.
And Alexander Acosta covered it up. And I just don't see Alexander Acosta going out on a limb and covering up a nationwide international pedophile network without his boss sanctioning it. And there's only two people in the country that can tell a U.S. attorney to stand down. One's the attorney general, one's the president.
Wow.
At that time, the attorney general was Alberto Gonzalez, and I don't see him covering up an interstate or international pedophile network without his boss sanctioning it. And his boss was George Walker Bush II. So
right.
I believe that that cover up was orchestrated from the president's office.
Yeah. And then Alexander Acosta was, of course, rewarded by Donald Trump with a cabinet level position in his administration shortly after that sweetheart deal. So.
And that's when he said, he was asked why he went so light on Epstein. And that's when he said that I was told that Epstein was intelligence. And
that's right.
And to stand down. Now, he's since recanted that, but he did
He said it.
He said it.
I remember him saying it. Nick,
So I believe ultimately that it was at least two intelligence entities that Epstein was
right.
working for.
Really fascinating. And there's a lot more on this. I want to encourage you guys to follow Nick Bryant on Twitter. Also support his work over at epsteinjustice.com. That's epsteinjustice.com. I have linked to Nick Bryant's piece. It's very important. It's entitled Jeffrey Epstein, Child Trafficker and Geopolitical Sculptor, which goes into detail into some of his reporting. And really appreciate you, Nick. I could probably talk to you for another hour, and I'm sure we will talk again at some point, but I do have to let you go. We've run out of time here. Any last points you want to make before we close up?
I really encourage your audience to go to epsteinjustice.com. We are growing. We've got Facebook groups in various states, and we hold a webinar every month on how people can get involved. And this month is going to be a very good webinar, or I should say the webinar in January is going to be a very good webinar, because we're going to get into the geopolitical sculpting, and then
Great.
we're going to interview one of Epstein's victims. But this is something, we need an independent congressional commission to investigate Epstein. I don't think that anything short of that is going to yield justice, and justice equals indictments.
We need those indictments. I agree with you, Nick Bryant. And yes, I've been meaning to get to one of your webinars. I want to join the one. It's January 18th, I believe, is your
January
next
15th.
I'm sorry, January 15th. So I'll make a note of that to make sure to promote it to my audience, and I'll try to join you guys on that one, because you're doing really important work. Thank you to Nick Bryant. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Of course. And thank you guys for being with us today. I mean, my mind is kind of being blown by that interview. A lot of information there, a lot that is being uncovered by Nick Bryant. We need, as a country, as citizens of the United States of America, to continue to scrutinize this case. Again, the sex trafficking is horrifying, but we need to understand this is much larger than just that sex trafficking, and it points straight to the dark money, the evil center of a lot of what is going wrong in our country today, and a lot of it is stemming from Washington, D.C. And yeah, Israel's involved, but guess what? So are our people. So we need to continue to scrutinize them. Thank you to Annie for producing the show today. Really appreciate you. Thank you guys for being with us today on the live chat. We'll be back on the Shannon Joy Show to do it all again tomorrow. So make sure you keep it tuned right here.